personality disorder is a mental health condition where people have a lifelong pattern of seeing themselves and reacting to others in ways that cause problems. People with personality disorders may often struggle to understand emotions or tolerate distress. This makes it hard for them to relate to others, causing serious issues and affecting their family life, social interactions, work and school performance, and overall quality of life. As you can see, personality disorders have far-reaching effects on a person's life, especially in a person's relationships with others. Here are 2 accounts of living with a personality disorder and how it affects relationships. I'm Carolyn, and I have borderline personality disorder.
I'm John. I also have BPD.
So John, what have your past relationships been like before getting diagnosed?
So not great. Any of them, platonic, like friendships, or romantic relationships with partners. With BPD, you tend to over-respond, I would say. Like the magnitude of my emotional responses was far greater than a normal person would experience. Not knowing I was diagnosed made that even more difficult because the people I was interacting with, these emotional outbursts or how personally I would take things were crazy. Dude, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. Like, why are you acting that, whatever. I put a lot of pressure on my partners in romantic relationships to kind of baby me through those and kind of make it their responsibility to know what to talk about and what not to talk about. And especially with like romantic partners, badgering them about things because I'm paranoid, right? Because any little change seems like there's something seriously bad going on, in the relationship because I feel like I'm not good enough. The occasional, not violent, but like aggressive outburst of emotion can be scary to people in your life. And especially when you don't know where it's coming from either, it can make things really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
What about Glenn or Hugh? What about you?
So I really struggled with like seeking intimate relationships where there were none. And I would try to forge like really strong bonds with people way too soon, or where the bond wasn't there. Like I would try to make a best friend be my closest person in my life. Like they talk a lot about having a favorite person with borderline, where there's a person that you really latch onto and you can have a very like heightened relationship. And I would try to find romance anywhere I could find it. Like I was desperate for a partner and I wanted it to be like this big, huge romance. I wanted it to be a significant other, and people would be very overwhelmed by how strongly I came on. People would push me away. I felt a sense of abandonment when that would happen, and I would kind of retaliate on myself. Like I would self-harm if someone ghosted me, and it would be this really big deal. It would be like this huge devastation, even if it was someone that I barely talked to, because I would form all of these attachments in my mind that weren't even there.
People don't always know the relationship is as big as you make it in your head.
They have no idea how big it is in my head. Like everything is so magnified.
Yeah.
All of my emotions, all of them. So at what point did you get diagnosed?
So I was actually originally diagnosed when I was a teenager, but I didn't really kind of look into it or have any follow through. I thought borderline personality was just somebody who doesn't know who they are. And it's a little right, but it doesn't really give you the full picture. The reality for me is I don't really know who I am or see myself in my life, and I make other people very important to me. And so I kind of make my personality about what this person needs or that person needs for me to be able to have a connection with others. About 5 years ago, I was diagnosed again, but I was actually walked through what that entailed. Like, just the details of the disorder eased my mind a lot because I recognized that, the heightened sense of my emotions when compared to others was normal. You know what I mean? I learned that, that feeling of abandonment when people just can't handle your bullshit anymore because of it, that's normal because I'm attaching too strongly to people. So a lot of cognitive and dialectical behavior therapy allowed me to start challenging thoughts that might be intrusive about things when I feel like something's going wrong and it's my fault. It's kind of like everything's, I'm not good enough, right? Like rather than it being, your mistakes are a reflection of me, like some other disorders, it's more like your mistakes are because you don't like me. Your behavior is because you don't want me around. You don't need me around. Oh God, why don't you need me around?
Yeah.
So a lot of thought challenging has helped. Just breathing techniques. I learned some techniques to kind of keep intrusive thoughts away. Sounds generic, but a lot of meditation. And I kind of learned early on after I was diagnosed to not let myself, sort of attach or get comfortable with any state of emotion, whether that was happiness or sadness or love. I kind of had to coach myself into recognition that sometimes love doesn't always last. And so I've learned that when I grab onto that idea and it has to last forever, like, borderline personality tends to do, I fall apart when it doesn't last. And so being able to sort of detach myself from that concept has made things a lot smoother when things do go south. So my relationships have improved. I still have my moments. If I'm like fatigued and overworked, I can feel that emotion building up. I don't recognize it right away, but when I've been pacing back and forth, either paranoid about something or overly hurt, I kind of recognize that, almost PTSD feeling that I get, and I can just be like, go to bed. Don't ask whatever you're gonna ask, don't say whatever you're gonna say, just either leave or find a quiet space away from people.
When I got diagnosed, we were already together, and I think we'd been dating for a couple of years at that point. And it had definitely taken its toll on our relationship. I was very, very dependent on John for my emotional needs, and they were so overwhelming that I didn't feel like I could handle them myself. I got into therapy and I was starting to really struggle with like rage and stuff like that, and recognized that a lot of the things I'd learned about from John were applied to me. So I was able to get help for that by kind of, I think, looking inward and realizing that I was having the same issues. So I had to really find independence. I'm still working on that, but learning how to manage my emotions myself, and like John said, using DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, I've been able to get a better hold on my emotions and have more manageable, like less heightened emotions, which I think is helping us. We have a lot more of a relaxed lifestyle today. Things aren't as chaotic as they were. So I think that's actually helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met John and I found out that he had BPD, all I knew about BPD was the stigma that people who have it are emotional vampires and their relationships are destined to fail.
Your mom gave you a book that said
Oh my God, my mom gave me a book about handling toxic people with BPD, and she thought it would help, and I was like, oh my God, no. So I was overwhelmed. I was thinking like, I've bit off more than I can chew. I really didn't know what to do. So I taught myself everything I could. I read a crap ton of articles and would send him the articles, which I don't know if you even read them, but I got a lot out of them, and I learned so much that way. I learned from other friends who have it, how you can de-escalate someone, for instance, because he would still have really big emotions back then. And I learned that if you tell someone something validating while they're in an episode, it might not get through to them, but if you reaffirm it once they've calmed down, maybe the next day, it is validating. So I would try to validate him a lot.
Also, if I could interject.
Yeah.
A lot of people think they have good de-escalation skills, but there are a lot of do's and don'ts. And just the big one that comes to mind is, it's okay. Don't say it's
No.
okay while somebody is still up here, because it is clearly
Yeah.
not okay. You know, you can say your feelings are valid or whatever, right? What can I do to help? Wait till a little later to say it's okay, it's not your fault. You know,
Yeah.
whatever it is you have to say in that situation. That seems to work for us.
Yeah, because while you're feeling the emotions, you know, they say feelings aren't facts, but when you're feeling such big, strong emotions, they feel so real. So any perceived abandonment or rejection feels 100% real. Like maybe it's not, but in that moment you can't tell the difference. Sorry, the video cut off, so we're just gonna get right back into it.
I changed my shirt. No, one of the big things for me as far as dealing with my own BPD and interacting with others, and especially in a romantic relationship, is taking ownership of my own feelings, right? Like this idea that you can't make me feel anything. Like you hear it in arguments all the time. Someone will say something and the person will respond, well, you made me feel like shit or whatever for that. And the reality is that person didn't make you feel anything. The feelings came from in here. There's something in here that needs to be looked at. Taking ownership of my feelings like that allows me a moment to stop and kind of look inside so I can identify triggers, the cause of the triggers, and like how I'm feeling. Is my heart rate up? Am I shaky? Like what do I feel like right now? And then I can move forward from there. And another thing it helps me do is if I am escalated, I'm at a point now where I can still recognize it. So understanding that you can't make me feel anything means I also can't blame somebody else for how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And as funny as it sounds, even just taking a second to word things in a non-accusatory way will slow me down and kind of tamp those feelings down a little bit, because you can stay trapped in a loop of my feelings are your fault, my feelings are your fault. And so that's actually been really big for me, is just taking ownership of my own feelings.
Yeah. For me, I've been working on not being so dependent on John or other people, having responsibility, like you said, over not just my emotions, but over whatever like crisis I'm in, you know, not imposing on other people when I have some big emotional upheaval, and actually being able to handle it myself, which was really hard at the beginning because I had like a very codependent relationship with my favorite person before coming into John's life, and I was always enabled, and that ultimately doesn't serve a person to be enabled constantly. And so now I'm having to validate myself for the first time, take care of myself, and not have to put all of that responsibility on someone else. Yeah. Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much, John, for joining me in today's video. This was part 5 in my series about personality disorders. There is one more part coming soon about my experience with borderline personality disorder personally, and I will be going back to my regular content after that. So if you like this video, please let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, like and subscribe if you'd like to support my channel. I put out videos every Monday and Thursday, so stick around if you'd like to see more coming soon, and thanks.